Now I will discuss the development of the eye which was left in the last lecture. As I told you, the optic curve consists of the two layers, outer layer and the inner layer. The outer layer forms the pigmented layer while inner layer will form the neural retina, which is further divided into the anterior fifth and the posterior four-fifth part. From the posterior four-fifth part, and if you remember that we say that there is development of the layer of rods and cones, then there is a mantle layer which will develop the inner ganglionic layer, outer ganglionic layer and the ganglion cell layer. So these layers were developed from the neural retina posterior four-fifth part. While from the anterior fifth part, what will develop? There will be development of the pars ceca retini, and this pars ceca retini will develop the pars iridica retini and the pars ciliaris retini. So the anterior fifth part of the neural retina which is also known as the inner layer of the retina, it will be forming the pars ceca retini, then pars iridica retini and the pars ciliaris retini. Now this pars iridica retini will participate in the formation of the iris. Iris, as I told you, the iris will be formed here in the eye. And this one is the iris. This iris has the mainly two layers. Mainly there is the outer layer and the inner layer. Outer is the pigmented layer and inner is the non-pigmented layer. Also in the iris there are two muscles which are the sphincter retini and the sphincter pupillae and the dilator pupillae. These muscles are ectodermal in origin. Keep it in mind, all the muscles develop from the mesoderm. Only these two muscles, sphincter pupillae and the dilator pupillae, they develop from the surface ectoderm. Okay. So in this way the iris will develop. Similarly, the pars ciliaris retini will develop the ciliary body. Ciliary body, how it will form, now I have told you. Now from the pars ciliaris retini, ciliary body will be formed. Ciliary body is here, as I told you. This one is the ciliary body. This was the iris, and in between the iris, this is the pupil. Firstly, initially there is a development of the membrane between the iris and the pupil, which is known as the iridopupillary membrane. But later on in the development, this membrane will be vanished and there is only the pupil is left. So there will be the pupil between the iris. Now this is the lens, this is the surface ectoderm and this is the conjunctival sac. Now I am told about the ciliary body. This is the ciliary body. This is also formed from the pars ciliaris retini, which is the part of the anterior fifth of the neural retina. This ciliary body developed the ciliary muscle. So then this is very important for the accommodation of the lens. And there is also development of suspensory ligament. This suspensory ligament will connect with the lens. So when there is contraction of the lens, this suspensory ligament, it will help in the accommodation of the lens for the vision. So this is also the ciliary body and this is the suspensory ligament. Now I will tell you about how the anterior chamber of the eye will be developed. Anterior chamber. Here is the anterior chamber of the eye. Keep it in mind that the whole optic curve is surrounded by the mesenchyme. So this one is the mesenchyme. Now the further layers, which are the sclera, choroid and anterior chamber and the vitreous humor, this will develop from the mesenchyme. This mesenchyme in the anterior chamber, it will develop the vacuolation, and through this vacuolation anterior chamber will develop, and in the anterior chamber the fluid which flow is known as the aqueous humor. aqueous humor. This will flow in the anterior chamber of the eye, and this aqueous humor will be drained by the canal of Schlemm, which is present at the iridocorneal junction. Then we have the sclera and the choroid, two layers. This optic cup here is also surrounded by the mesenchyme. This mesenchyme is differentiated into the inner vascular layer and outer non-vascular layer. Inner vascular layer is from the choroid, while the outer non-vascular layer will form the sclera of the eye. In this way, the different layers of the eye will develop. Inner the retina, then we have the choroid, which is the vascular layer, and the outermost layer is that of the sclera. Now, how the vitreous body is formed? Vitreous body is also formed by the mesenchyme, and there are the two types of vitreous humor, primary vitreous humor and the secondary vitreous humor. Primary develop from the mesenchyme, while the secondary will develop from the neural process cells. So this is also very important here. Here is the vitreous body. Now it is also running the hyalid artery, but later on, as I told you, the distal part will disappear and the proximal part will form the central artery of the retina. The optic stalk will later on will be filled by the ganglionic cell layers of the retina, and the choroidal fissure lips will close. So now the optic stalk will be converted into the optic nerve. In this way, through the optic nerve, the eye is connected to the brain, and this optic nerve is surrounded by the dura mater and the pia mater, as the sclera has the continuity with the dura mater, while the choroid has the continuity with the pia mater. In this way, meninges will also become continuous with the brain. Now, as I told you about the development of the retina, lens, different layers of the eye, okay, then comes to the different clinicals of the eye. In the clinicals of the eye, can you see there is firstly the coloboma of the eye. What is coloboma of the eye? If the choroidal fissure fail to close, then the coloboma of the eye will develop, and mainly the condition is coloboma of the iris. Mainly the coloboma of the iris is most prominent. This is the coloboma of the iris. Second condition is the detachment of retina. Detachment of retina. Mostly the inner and the outer layer of the retina, which are the pigmented and the neural layer, they will fuse together. But if they will not fuse, then the condition is the detachment of the retina. And detachment of the retina can be primary or the secondary. In case of the primary detachment of the retina, what will happen? Congenitally, that both layers in inner and the outer layer of the retina are not fused. And this condition is associated with different congenital syndromes like Down syndrome. But in case of the secondary retina, after development or in the adult life, what will happen? There is a history of any trauma or the accident. That is why the retinal layers will separate it out. This is the secondary detachment of the retina. There is also condition of the eye where there is the aphakia. What is aphakia? If there is the absence of the lens not developed, absence of the lens, then this is known as the aphakia. Okay. Then there are also many other conditions. One condition is the cataract, which can be congenital. In the congenital cataract, what will happen? The lens will have the opacity, white opacity will develop. That is why the VN will be disrupted. This is the congenital cataract, and the main the traumatic agent is the rubella virus. But now the MMR, mumps, measles and the rubella vaccine is available for the pregnant ladies. That is why this congenital cataract is prevented. Next condition is the glaucoma. If the intraocular pressure in the brain is increased, then the condition develops. This is the glaucoma of the eye, and in this condition there will be the blindness of the eye. There is another condition which is known as the cyclopia. What happened in the cyclopia? In cyclopia, mainly two eyes become fused. This is known as the cyclopia. I hope you understand the lecture.